Hi guys, welcome. This is going to be on all the readings, just FYI. It's a little bit different than what I usually do, but I was picking up on some really interesting insights, so I wanted to go over them. I apologize for the recent setup. I'm working on a project right now, and it's like still in the making, so just know that I'll reveal it later, but right now I'm just in the midst of working on a project that I've been wanting to finish, and it's a really cool thing, and so yeah, that will come later. I will reveal that later on. So I apologize for lighting and everything. It's definitely different, but I've been working on something behind the scenes, and that's what I'm up to right now. So here's what I was picking up on. Obviously, I'm a little bit late in the game as far as talking about the Pluto Saturn transitions that are taking place. I wanted to get a good feel for the patterns that were playing out, but this morning I was picking up on something really fascinating, and it was really helpful. And so I wanted to give you guys this information because I feel like it's somewhat the entanglement of the planets. Obviously, it's going to lead to transformations. And so I specifically pulled out the Accurate AF Tarot, and I wanted to go over the specific entanglement from the planets that would play out here. So obviously Aquarius, Pluto's going to be in Aquarius, and then we have Saturn, which represents the devil there, in Pisces, right? So Saturn in Pisces, Pluto in Aquarius. This was so fascinating because what's going to be really interesting about this transition, either you guys have these placements, or those of you that have a different sign, sun, moon, or rising, you might come across like an Aquarius or a Pisces, and this person might be very significant to you throughout the next however long, as we go through these transitions. Obviously, what is it? Aquarius and Pluto and Aquarius is going to be for a longer extent of time, but it'll just be in this temporary transition and then come out of the sign and then go back into it by the end of the year. So this is what I've been watching play out. First of all, every time there is a Pluto transit, especially a shift in that, I always associate Pluto with power dynamics and power struggles specifically. These can play out in a multitude of ways. So the biggest one that I've been seeing happen, there's just been this really fascinating shift take place for anyone that had been a scapegoat, or anyone that was considered the underdog, or maybe not the most glorified in society. There's this really interesting shift that's been taking place karmically, where those that have been coming back into center with themselves and have been going along with the whole Pluto and Saturn theme, which Pluto is about deep transformation, and it's also about tapping unlocked potential in DNA. That can even involve some quantum physics. When we talk about quantum tunneling, we can say that one little tiny thing can completely alter the molecular structure of a human being when they are being conceived, when they're being birthed into this reality. And so those should not be taken lightly. I think that's where a lot of the transition is going to be taking place in this society, is realizing that, what is the word specifically? Oh, there's an actual word, decoherence, that's actually a very real thing, that we can't keep glossing over these things that we think are very small and insignificant and don't really matter, that in the grand scheme of things, that they're affecting things at the macro level, that these little tiny micro things that we ingest, anything that goes inside the body, that it's actually causing this butterfly effect, or these ripple effects in the vibration across everywhere in the universe, and that we're all feeling it. We go through these waves of this in the collective. So that's going to be one specific part of it, but Uranus will be the rebellion. That is Aquarius, and these will be really, this will be a really big struggle when it comes to generations as well. people that have been really set in their ways, there could be upheavals, and, you know, because it's demanding a profound change at this point. You know, that this is the death card. You guys know it's death, sex, transformation. And I always think back to, what was it, the 60s, when it was like the era and time where there was a lot of drugs, and then there was a lot of things coming out about STDs and things like that. So there's these generational things that take place, and that's going to be very poignant at this time. Now, the fascinating thing I was picking up on, the thing that I really wanted to dive in about Pisces, okay? There will be, like, these are very signs that can be really misunderstood, at least I think, you know, and that could be, you know, that's a big generalization, but I'm saying most people don't understand these specific signs, especially, I would say, Pisces can be pretty complex, where Aquarians can be just really, like, I talk about this quite a bit. Aquarian in general, and us moving into the Aquarian age, is very futuristic. To me, it's very much so about humanitarianism. Now, that doesn't mean that these old paradigms don't exist in each one of us. Just because you could be dealing with an Aquarius, they still could be struggling to move into a more utopian way of being, which I do think is going to be the biggest struggle right now, is releasing. It's like this transition into the Aquarian age and like a possible new Earth or a utopian society. This will be quite a struggle, because those that have been dealing with power and are used to sitting on a lot of power, that need to divert it or rearrange the power structures, that's going to be quite an internal struggle. Because the biggest paradigm that I've seen play out, and this has affected everyone across the board, you know, it can start at the top and then it just trickles down, and to stay conscious of those patterns is quite tricky. But I always watch how people that sit in a position of power hold on to things. And there's obviously a healthy balance between like divvying out the information and also on like giving a freely. You know, I've posted this on my Instagram, how there's all these pyramid structures in society, and they're all the same, like the food pyramid, and how it's created all these specific structures all the way over to the class system, you know, elites over to poverty. And we wouldn't really be in the position that we're sitting in if education was free to everyone, which is why I think that social media and YouTube especially really is changing things, because information is so readily available now. You can literally just click on a free video and practically get an education. And that's going to be really tricky to the current power structures, because it's like everyone is desiring change and everyone wants a change in our structure. People want things to be more fair, like we all deserve to have life and to live freely and to have a life of free from oppression and free from all these sicknesses and things that we've been dealing with. We all have a right to that. That's going to really be tricky with anyone that is like holding on to that power and struggling. And it's just something internal about the chemical structure, the molecular structure, where these are going to shift quite a bit, because this star energy is very alchemical. This is alchemy, and then this is a purging. And then Saturn's going to come in with Pisces, where it's going to demand, like, obviously Saturn is about discipline. It's shadow energy that needs to be alchemized into a different type of energy. So the thing that I was thinking about a lot with Pisces, okay, Pisces, it has two planets that rule over it, Jupiter and Neptune, which is why I think it's cool. You know, there's obviously 2 cards in the tarot that represent. I know I always say that the High Priestess is Pisces, but there's really no difference. Like, I go back and forth, but technically the moon does rule over Cancer, so it gets kind of confusing with me in the tarot. So anyway, the moon is obviously subconscious things. It's deep energies that exist within inside of us. It's shadow energy. But this is going to be a very fascinating combination of Saturn being in Pisces, because Piscean energy is highly spiritual. It's not really in touch with a reality, so to speak. This to me would be like the time where spiritual discipline is going to be at the forefront of transformation and change. This combination is going to be fascinating to watch play out, because this Piscean energy, the reason why I wanted to pull this out specifically with the Hanged Man is because this talks about the things that you're willing to sacrifice for your transformation to take place. It's moments and times where you are kind of in a holding pattern, or you're hung up in a situation and you want to get to the next phase. And this almost would be like a quantum leap, this combination, because it's something alchemical that needs to take place. And Pisces, there's a specific couple that I watch on YouTube, and they are fascinating for me to observe their archetype, which is why I bring them up specifically. But they are like these travelers, and both of them, they're a couple, and they are both Pisces. And they're extremely successful. Like, some people might be able to figure out who I'm talking about, but they're unbelievably successful in what they do, and they have completely mastered the Hanged Man. Most people might be around them and think of them as vagabonds, or, you know, like whatever word you want to label them as. Maybe they look like they're poor, or, you know, they don't have what would look like on the surface of them to be like super rich, but they are actually extremely successful. They're very savvy. They're very good at budgeting. They're amazing at sacrificing those momentary pleasures, like say spending money or wanting to purchase things, or you know what I mean? They live out of on very minimalism terms. And they like wear the same clothes. Sometimes they go days without showering. They live in situations that would be very unappealing, but that's Piscean. Piscean is crazy flexible, but that's why it can shift in and out of energies. And the more that you can work with that, because it's not to say you have to be a Pisces to feel this and master this. It's more about how can you embody Piscean energy to go with the flow and be flexible in your current situation. If you gang up with a Pisces, you'll probably be really successful, because that entanglement, being able to mirror that person, would be very powerful, because like Piscean energy, like I said, it's the fish. It knows how to be flexible and just go with whatever comes into the energy. And that really helps in challenging times, because Pisces can be very fluid and just kind of like, it demands a lot of emotional purging. And Pisces is very good at that. And so this transit is going to be very fascinating with the Saturn and Pisces, because I do feel like, yes, it's about self-discipline. Saturn wants to, for each of you guys, go in and transform the specific house that it's going to be hitting during this transit time. So that's going to be different for all of you. It could be hitting finances. It could be hitting your self-image. It could be working on your communications. It could be working on your home life or your family. It's going to be different for all of you. But it's going to possibly move things in a more spiritual direction. So it's possible a lot of spiritual businesses will be built at this time. That definitely, with all of this combination. I would even dare to venture to say that this is going to be a highly significant time where Christ consciousness comes at the forefront of things. not Buddhist, not anything like that. Christ consciousness is going to be coming into these dynamics and shifting the collective to move in this, like, a more humanitarianism society, because obviously it hasn't been in that direction. Like, this has been, we have definitely been able to see things at a different angle, how things have been structured. And this is going to be this, especially this Aquarian energy. Aquarian to me is very, like, into science and the arts. So it's a very, that's why I was saying a bit of alchemy, because it's all about getting back connected to the environment. That really is the key to us and being healthy, and the ways that we need to convert things in this society. So that's why a lot of things have been coming up to the surface. Like, people are coming up with inventions. I think that Aquarian energy is very innovative. It's like an inventor. It will come up with things to better this society and better the people, and create a really nice flow between humans, nature, animals, everything. That is kind of like, that's going to be this combination. It's going to be very powerful. That's why you'll see in general there's a really big flux of healing entities that are being produced at this time. Very transformational. Like, it's just fascinating to watch how the trends that are coming up on Instagram, everything is just readily available information. And that's why I especially wanted to touch on that Piscean energy, because it's like, this is going to be, the Hanged Man is obviously shifts in perspective. So what has been perceived to be of value for a very long time, that will probably go out the window, because a lot of this stuff, like that Hanged Man energy, is just so, it's all about, what can you get rid of right now? What are you willing to sacrifice to get to whatever it is, the next level of your transformation? Whatever it is talking about, that is what Pisces and Saturn transit is going to be focusing on. It's like environmental things that you will probably have to go through. Like, let me give you guys a good example. Okay, I don't even think that this was happening, but I can touch on it because of Piscean energy. I have like 3 planets in Pisces. So back in the day, a while ago, I decided to take the dive into entrepreneurship. And that was really crazy, because I had no idea I had read no books. I had no idea what I was doing. And I just took a dive. And it was really crazy. And it was so stressful. Like, that's also part of the moon, is it's fear and anxiety. And the transitions that need to be made in order for you to, like, if it's career changes or things like that, for you to get to the next level, it will be very helpful for you to have a way to calm your anxieties, like meditation, things like that. That is what happened for me. I got pulled in and I got really deep in a meditation practice, and that somewhat, not totally, but helped me with my anxiety as I was making the transition, because I was so willing to let go of what was such a huge security to me. Financially, my career, I was willing to go and sleep in my car for however long, because I was that willing to sacrifice and to try to make a transition, because my health was, I think intuitively, I felt that my health was not going in a very good direction. And so my lifestyle wanted to change to be compatible with the transitions that I had to make for this whole lifestyle to become a reality. So I had to be very flexible with the changes, and that has been a lot of my path, is constant movement, you know, and having to like learn lessons, and a lot of shadow will come up to the surface the more flexible that you are. So the more that you can go into things and be flexible with where your intuition wants to take you, your shadow, you don't have to do very much shadow work as long as you kind of keep to your routines and stick with you staying in touch with your body, which is this Aquarian energy. The moon, the moon and the devil is shadow energies that come up to the surface. So as long as you can continue to stay alchemizing, like stay connected to yourself, you can move through the energy. You don't have to go dive down and dredge up old memories. Your shadow comes in naturally. It really does, especially the more that you're in a high vibration, which to me would be the Star card. It's an elevation of emotion, because it's when you start to feel some form of inspiration, optimism, calm, or harmony, these positive sides of the Star card energy. Whenever you are able to come into that energy, then sometimes it can be confusing because you feel like something shadowy will come in to counter that, or it comes in right after that. And then you start, your initial impulse might be to associate that this coming into this positive energy was not a good idea because you see this shadow energy come up. But you have to continue to come into this or stay in this energy, because this is when your shadow is really coming up to the surface to be integrated, you know, wants to be like included in this, whatever that looks like. Okay. All shadow energy wants to feel this relief. Isn't that interesting? So yes, keep that in mind. You're big, like the things that you're willing to let go of, like for example, with the Hanged Man, yeah, it can be like, oh, okay, here's a really good example too. There's this guy, Kerwin Ray, that I follow. He was like a really big part of my journey at the very beginning when I was taking a leap into entrepreneurship. And he always talked about, he was like, I might get judged because I wear the same exact thing almost every single day, but I do things like that to cut out decision making. So it's like, it's not about impressing, or it's like, what do you need to do at this time to get ahead? What do you need? What are you willing to just sacrifice that's ridiculous? It really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, what are you willing to just let go of? Because it might be more associated to people's opinions, or like, you know, being accepted into relationships or dynamics where you really don't feel like you are accepted there or you fit in there anyway. You know what I mean? It's those type of things that I think are deeply ingrained in us, as far as just whatever the freak has happened over the things that we've been ingesting that have affected the quantum level, really, truly. And now we're changing up these dynamics, like coming into a different type of energy. So go with the flow is pretty much what I'm wanting to say with the Hanged Man, because that flexibility is going to be key in all of this. And be flexible with Saturn, because Saturn, like, that is such a fascinating combination, because Saturn is all about discipline, and Pisces doesn't want to be very disciplined, but the combination actually would be highly beneficial, because it's like that's going to create this ultimate freedom by, and I do think that this will be a really poignant time as far as a different set of, how do I say this? Oh, okay. Now I see it. This is going to be a time where those of you that are more knowledgeable about your family line, or you have the ability to just kind of look at patterns within your family structure, this will be a really fascinating time where the people that you connect with are going to be connected also to something ancestral. So I know we talk a lot about readers like generational karma and patterns passed down by your ancestors, there's going to be a very specific one. And those of you that are super into alchemy, what I've been watching especially is there could be patterns that are coming up where you're attracting people that are very kind of even triggering to a deeply emotional experience that that could have been passed along your family line. It could have been deaths in the family, like really powerfully emotionally charged experiences that got passed along cellularly. That's probably going to be coming up to the surface at this time. It's kind of Akashic record like. So those of you, if like, you could come across connections, because I wouldn't be surprised if you even have fascinating interactions between these signs, specifically Pisces, Capricorn, Scorpio, and Aquarius. It can involve any sign, but especially for those of you, if you have any of those placements, anything at all having to do with those signs, whether you attract any of those people or you have the placements yourself, something is going on very specific where you would start to see, wow, like maybe there's a person that will remind you or look like, even not even just an immediate family member, it could even look like an older generation for those of you that are kind of into that stuff. So it could be like an older ancestor that has already passed away, but they almost have similar features. That's a lot of molecular biology where you can recognize family members, and that could be very significant at this time because it might want to take you into situations or relationship dynamics to trigger something very emotionally charged, and that's what will be very trippy, and it will be very helpful if you can at this time dive into some of that work. For those of you that have access or to dive into genealogy, I would highly recommend it. It is literally like having a key to the patterns that you're going through right now. Like it's like a map. And sometimes if you do enough digging, your ancestors will help you to find things to help you along your path right now, to figure out what you're experiencing emotionally and the things that you need to do at this time to make the changes that your ancestors might not have had access to, whether it's information or like maybe it's food. It could be a combination of things. But that's going to be really, really important at this time. If you have access to it, would be a very good thing to dive into. Also, the other thing I was seeing is it's very important for you guys to learn new things at this time, okay? Like, keep your brain very active. Keep your brain, it's like something about neural net wiring, because you see that with that too. It's like the more neural net wiring you change up in your brain by reading new things or diving into new topics or just integrating new stuff into your reality, that will also cause a shift to take place. So pain is good, okay? Try to associate any kind of pain, purging, crying, things like that. It's a good thing to feel. Okay, I think that's very good for us to associate because a lot of us want to avoid pain, but the pain is a good thing. That means that you're feeling, that means that you're experiencing an emotion that a lot of people want to numb out by scrolling, sex, drinking, eating a lot of food, whatever diversion or distraction you try to use to avoid feeling deep emotional things. It's just like super good if you can allow yourself to feel those things and try to look at what you can sacrifice at this time so that you can get the transformation that you're desiring at this time. All right. Okay, yeah, I feel like that's it. This was super long. I thought this was going to be much shorter and that it would be on all the readings. I'll probably just post this as a video all by itself. Those of you that want to listen to it, great. Here it is for you, just in case it would be helpful for some of you guys out there. So I love you so much. guys, thanks so much for listening to me ramble for a long time. And yeah, like I said, I hope this is super helpful, and I will see you guys in the readings. Take care.